Today's focus: the Coinbase premium has turned positive and fees are recovering. Will Bitcoin see a triple surge from institutions? Binance's Dubai conference has kicked off, and He has been promoted to co-chair. What kind of good fortune or signals does this reveal? Trump has hinted that Kazakhstan will take power, and it seems the spring of Fed rate cuts is really just around the corner. It's Thursday, December 4th. This is the BitcoinTV Chinese channel. Where is Billian? And I'm Michael. Let's first look at the most important crypto data from the past 24 hours. The headlines will tell you what's really happening in the crypto world. This wave of on-chain data clearly shows that Bitcoin isn't just patching things up after a drop. Major institutions have truly returned and are making a comeback. How can we tell? Let's look at the Coinbase Premium Index. In November, it was all in a pullback, which showed that US institutions were all pulling out, right? As a result, Bitcoin dropped to around 85,000. But now, this data has snapped back into positive territory. What does that mean? Sorry, we're back again. Three major positive factors are pushing Bitcoin upward together. The first is that Vanguard suddenly switched sides, allowing 50 million very conservative American investors to get their first real taste of what a Bitcoin ETF is like. There's also Charles Schwab, whose $1.2 billion fund pool has been set up since 2026, and they're going straight in on Bitcoin as soon as it goes live. Japan's ETF is also ready now. With investment trusts and pension funds, these two giants can easily throw in $3 billion to $10 billion at any time to buy the dip, and that's absolutely no problem. In other words, not only have institutions not left, they're actually racing to secure their spot as Bitcoin investors for 2026 ahead of time. Because now, Bitcoin is no longer that speculative asset from the old days. Now Bitcoin is considered a new standard for global asset allocation, which is why the Coinbase premium has turned positive. It's just like that saying, everyone feel free to buy, we've already bought a kilo ourselves. Alright, so there's been a rebound in Bitcoin sentiment this time, but what about the funding rate? Let's take a look. In November, that big plunge sent the funding rate into negative territory, and the bears were basically dancing on the bulls' graves. But by December, when the price of Bitcoin dropped back to around 85,000, people noticed that the funding rate just wouldn't lie down. It stubbornly stayed positive, holding its ground no matter what. What this means is that even though the bulls took a hit, they're not scared. As soon as the market picks up, the funding rate immediately jumps as well, which basically says, no problem, the bulls are still ready to charge. So this kind of trend usually indicates that the bulls are quietly increasing their positions, and the bears don't dare to act recklessly anymore. The market has shifted from a survival mode to a rhythm where the bulls are considering whether to take another shot. So when the funding rate keeps rising and stays high, that's typically a classic signal that the price is about to stabilize. If the funding rate remains strong afterward and the price can climb back above $90,000, then the short-term trend is basically leaning bullish. Alright, let's take a look at Ethereum. Recently, Ethereum dropped to around $3,100, but the NUPL is still holding steady at around 0.2. The underlying message here is that people are still able to make some money. There hasn't been enough panic for everyone to start cutting their losses and running, nor have we reached that overheated bull market peak where everyone loses their heads. So from June to August, the NUPL was soaring rapidly. But when Ethereum started dropping throughout October, profits also began to shrink gradually. So market sentiment shifted from euphoria back to a more rational, calm mode. But here's the key point. The NUPL hasn't even dropped into negative territory, which means people haven't lost enough to want to bail out. For Ethereum to experience a deep plunge now, it's actually not that easy anymore. The current market is more like warming up in place, waiting for a clear catalyst to kick things off. If the NUPL data just stays above 0.2 and doesn't drop, Ethereum's momentum won't be cut off. It could surge at any moment. It's like, you think I'm done for, but I can still make a comeback. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up and turn on the notification bell. We're here to break down the news that's closest to making money in the Web3 world for you. From Monday to Friday, we'll share a wealth code with everyone. Today is Thursday, and we're bringing you a live broadcast from the Binance conference in Dubai, showing you how to interview He and the new CEO. Right now, we're in Dubai attending Binance Blockchain Week, which is currently the biggest event in the crypto world. As Binance's headquarters, Dubai itself is a battleground for capitalist fundamentalists, and its unique location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia makes it an inevitable hub. Dubai's policies toward crypto are extremely friendly, right? All kinds of exchanges and Web3 teams are flocking to Dubai. The biggest news at this Binance Blockchain Week is that He has been directly promoted to Binance's co-CEO, forming a dual-core leadership with Richard Teng. So why would He, as the actual controller, still care about the title of co-CEO? Does this mean that this giant with 300 million users is entering its next chapter? What story is Binance preparing to write next? This chapter of the story.
During a group interview with the media, He jokingly described herself as just someone who wants to get things done, but then went on to paint a picture of a larger, more intellectually clear Binance that is currently undergoing a period of transformation. She emphasized that having co-CEOs defines roles, not divides power. She pointed out that the market misunderstands why liquidity collapses in a crash. Retail investors don't lack funds, but top market makers cease operations in extreme markets, instantly thinning the order book.
We find a lot of good builders, developers, and many industry players coming together. That's a great achievement. That's a beginning.
HKEX stated that for investing, one must look at the cycle, and for long-term allocation, choose Bitcoin. In competitive tracks, buying hyped altcoins relies on short-term sentiment, but long-term it comes down to value. He believes Bitcoin is now a mainstream asset, and its volatility will narrow, with extreme pullbacks being much milder than before.
When talking with HKEX about regulation, I found it quite memorable. He said that the environment in Hong Kong is pretty good, but the threshold for global liquidity is still stuck in Hong Kong, so Binance doesn't dare to act impulsively. It's better to proceed cautiously for now. As for the situation in the US, HKEX said there's no rush and no need to block anything. The opportunity is still there. That's why HKEX dropped that thought-provoking famous line, "Never say never." She kept emphasizing, "I'm just a small fry." But in reality, HKEX is probably the most powerful woman in the crypto world. This afternoon, we had an exclusive interview with HKEX, and the very first question I wanted to ask her was, as the most powerful or perhaps the wealthiest woman in crypto, how does that feel? All right. Recently, Trump made another remark that set the world abuzz. During a White House event, he suddenly mentioned Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council. The subtext in his tone was that this guy is very likely to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. So, with only one candidate in mind, everyone can see that. On polling and prediction markets, Kevin Hassett's name suddenly lit up. He's become the hottest pick. Why is the crypto community so excited? Because this guy isn't just crypto-friendly. He also holds over $1 million worth of Coinbase stock. He's the head of the White House Digital Assets Working Group. What's even more crucial is that he has consistently said in various public forums that interest rates are too high. This isn't good news for Bitcoin's price increase. So, from the perspective of the crypto community, his election would be a clear signal that Bitcoin is about to surge. But the irony is, while the crypto community is laughing the hardest, Wall Street is scared out of their wits and extremely nervous. However, I think there's no need for everyone to be too anxious or too excited, because before and after taking office, a person can show two completely different faces. If someone hasn't actually sat in that seat, they really don't know how the script will play out.
The first thing that we've done is we've stopped the runaway inflation. And the second thing we've done is we've pushed policies that have caused incomes to grow significantly.
Wall Street and the American business community are lobbying Trump to oppose Kevin Hassett. Concerns are twofold. First, Hassett, a longtime political advisor to Trump, if he leads the Federal Reserve, could affect market expectations of independence. Second, if Hassett cuts interest rates prematurely before inflation is fully under control, the market may see it as political interference, further fueling inflation expectations and creating systemic risk.
So let me ask everyone a question. Have you thought about why Wall Street is so jittery about Hassett potentially becoming the Fed chair? If the new chair ends up being a Trump loyalist, it would turn the Federal Reserve into a mouthpiece for the White House. Wall Street doesn't want to see this kind of situation where the White House controls all the narratives and holds the most power, the boundaries of the Federal Reserve become blurred, the US dollar weakens, US Treasury bonds are sold off, and the global competitiveness of the dollar reaches its limits. In that case, the whole world would start hoarding gold. Of course, the crypto world would be so excited they'd start minting elephant coins, because at that point, only Bitcoin would have the strongest competitiveness. It can't be issued in unlimited amounts. Its value is relatively stable. And the devaluation and weakening of the US dollar would endlessly drive up Bitcoin's price. So it's completely understandable that Wall Street is so nervous their hands are shaking. To put it plainly, whoever sits in the chair of the Federal Reserve Chairman doesn't just decide where interest rates go, but determines the direction of the US economy for the next 3 years. Between the stock market and the crypto world, who is really the main player? Who will end up being marginalized? Here, there are legends of getting rich overnight, as well as carefully orchestrated scams. This is a dark forest of chaotic development. but it also nurtures the hope of a path toward the light. The destination of faith is freedom. The end point of consensus is equality. BitcoinTV will guide you through the fog, help you see the future, and together we'll gradually become wealthy. 8 years, 20 billion invested. JPMorgan discusses whether AI agents can take over from large models in 2026. Sony plans to launch a US dollar stablecoin in 2026, choosing the dollar over the yen. Where exactly is Sony hiding its ambition? JPMorgan has just released its 2026 investment report. After reading the entire report, I can sum up the main themes in 3 words: AI, fragmentation, and pain. Retail investors are already happily bottom fishing after being trapped 3 times. Was the pullback in November a bull market shakeout or a sign of an impending bear market? Musk predicted that paper money will be phased out and Bitcoin will be anchored to energy. Should we be considering the debt crisis? These past 3 years have not been in vain. You all see how powerful generative AI has become, right? Any kind of content can be generated with just one click. But I want to tell you, the more formidable AI gets, and the more AI-generated content floods the world, the more valuable and precious shows like ours, where real people appear on camera, will become. If you don't believe it, just wait and see. AI isn't just going to disrupt applications, it will disrupt all of humanity.
We've been working on AI since 2012, so people think it's something new. Generative AI is kind of new, but not everything is. We have 2,000 people working on it. We spend $2 billion a year on it. It impacts everything: risk, fraud, marketing, idea generation, customer service. These are just the tip of the iceberg.
The growth rate of large language models has clearly slowed down, and the market's focus is shifting toward agent AI that can proactively execute tasks. Unlike the overcapacity seen during the railroad or internet bubbles in the past, the current AI industry chain is still experiencing tight supply and demand, with data center vacancy rates at only 1.6%. 75% of future computing power has reserved. AI investments are supported by corporate cash flow. Firms such as Oracle have started issuing bonds to raise funds. Leverage is within a healthy range.
If you watched our first season of In-Depth Talks, you might remember that we actually discussed the topic of limited AI. I've always thought of AI as something similar to the productivity of the crypto world. It can infinitely amplify human creativity and quickly bring your ideas to life, whether it's video editing, news sorting, or summarizing information, right? AI tools are really useful, but I always have this vague sense of concern. Has anyone else wondered what will happen when AI reaches its ultimate stage of development? That pyramid, or rather the ultimate control power of AI, could that hand lead AI toward dictatorship or authoritarianism? So in terms of productivity, we need to use the kind of decentralized production relations found in the crypto world to limit and restrain it so that ultimately it doesn't lean toward authoritarianism. So no matter how AI develops in the future, how will the crypto world work together with AI? In the end, instead of constantly worrying about whether AI is a bubble and how to deflate it, shouldn't we be asking, where did AI come from and where is it going? Can we use AI to quickly achieve our A8 and A9 goals? Isn't that a more important question? Let's look at Sony. In recent years, Sony hasn't kept up in its traditional businesses, so it's entered the crypto world. In 2021, Sony invested in Make a Place, and by 2025, Sony launched its own Ethereum Layer 2 solution, Sonia. Now, there are rumors that Sony is about to launch a stablecoin. They're moving from developing technology to making money. But what's even more interesting, Sony has actually been laying the groundwork for this for a long time. In October, Sony Bank went to the US to apply for a national banking license so they could legally engage in crypto through a trust model. And they also brought in a very powerful partner. Who is it? The Base chain backed by Coinbase is the technical partner for Sony's Layer 2, and they even got Coinbase to invest as well. 14.6 million, so you could say the relationship between these two companies is extremely close. But everyone is asking one question. As a Japanese giant, why aren't you playing with the yen? Why do you have to go all the way to the US to issue a US dollar stablecoin? What's the point?
A Nikkei report on December 2nd states Sony plans to issue a US dollar stablecoin in the US by 2026, usable on PlayStation and within Sony's anime ecosystem. As a Japanese giant, issuing a US dollar stablecoin is mainly due to business and regulatory considerations. American users contribute 30% of its overseas revenue. Its gaming and anime businesses rely heavily on the US dollar region. Issuing a US dollar stablecoin simplifies cross-border exchange, saving transaction fees. At the same time, although US regulations are strict, the rules are clear. whereas Japanese stablecoin regulations restrict them to being pegged to the yen and are mostly used for small domestic payments, making it difficult to meet Sony's global business needs.
And I think that's sorely overdue. I mean, there's approximately $7 trillion globally spent on transaction verification, which includes credit card fees, wire fees, and all these different things we use. If you can cut that down using stablecoins and blockchain, I think we should be doing that.
So why is Sony issuing this stablecoin? Actually, their main goal is to reduce friction for their gamers within their own financial ecosystem, making payments, buying games, purchasing skins, all smoother experiences. But even so, US banks have come out against it, because Sony has promised that their stablecoin will generate returns, which does not follow the bank's rules. So this move by Sony is like a catfish stirring up the entire US stablecoin application industry. What was originally an 18-month compliance period, Sony might actually get a license. Now that US banks have provided proof, it's likely that this timeline will be pushed back. But what can we see from this? This news shows that Japan is extremely lenient when it comes to financial innovation for its own companies or Japanese-funded enterprises in the crypto space. Japan has already lowered taxes, and in the future, its policies might become even more aggressive than those of the United States. It's possible that Japan could surpass Hong Kong and Singapore to become the center of Web3 in all of Asia. Now let's look at the news highlights.
Sam Altman really wants to reach for the stars this time. He's planning to move data centers directly into outer space, and even went to a rocket company to discuss collaboration. If this actually happens, it would be Altman looking up and Musk running into him head-on, meeting in the universe, fighting for territory. Malaysia has been hit hard by electricity theft from crypto miners, with $1 billion worth of power vanishing without a trace. The police are using drones to patrol the skies and sensors to sweep the ground, while some miners even play bird sounds to cover up their activities, turning mining into something like a forest music festival. Now both sides are locked in a cat-and-mouse game, with even shop waste being raided. The government has stated that this crackdown on mining will continue relentlessly. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin is once again making his point clear. On X, he said that over the past few years, Ethereum has been continuously strengthening its rules, not just talking tough, but making the system itself robust, maximizing both security and future adaptability. Holy Market has finally launched its US version of the app. For the first time, American users can openly and legitimately participate, essentially throwing the doors wide open for local players. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen firmly stated that there's nothing wrong with Trump and the rumors are completely false. But the media isn't buying it. Washington might have a chance to catch him. During a 75-minute meeting, he closed his eyes for nearly 6 minutes. The New York Times added fuel to the fire, publicly revealing that his performance has dropped by 39% compared to his first term. While they claim everything is fine, the data tells a very honest story.
Jilatang always says you should make friends with people who have a solid foundation. Some might say, aren't you being too pragmatic? But having a solid foundation isn't about having a lot of money. It's about having integrity and generosity. You have to understand in life what truly supports you is never resources, but rather a person's character. You've probably met people who always like to argue, to contradict others, and who always try to outdo everyone else. Let me tell you, if you spend time with people like this, no matter how much energy you have, it will eventually be completely drained away. But people with deep integrity are totally different. They are emotionally stable, generous to others, and never impatient or irritable. They don't compete or fight for things, and you'll notice that when you're around people like this, your heart feels calm, your energy flows smoothly, and you feel steady. So you need to learn to stay close to kind-hearted people because that will help you live with clarity. Only by staying away from people who drain you can you live a truly abundant life. Many business owners hang the phrase, "great virtue carries all things" on their walls. But how many people really understand what it means? A person's virtue is their foundation, and it's also the key to how far they can go in life. People with great virtue not only won't hold you back, but will also lend you a hand when you stumble or fall. That's crucial. All right, that's all for today's program. If you find our channel interesting, please like, follow, and share it. Here, we've also organized our membership benefits, and we hope you'll consider joining as a member to support us in making the channel even more professional. Let's work hard together and gradually become more successful. See you tomorrow.